Hi, everyone. Let's look at our learning target for this week's lesson and then dive in. So I can determine the gist of A River of Words. Just as a little refresher, A River of Words is the book about the story of William Carlos Williams. Our author was Jen Bryant. Our illustrator was Melissa Sweet, Caldecott winning illustrator and artist. And he was also a little just kind of memory refresher. William Carlos Williams was the poet of The Red Wheelbarrow, which was the very first poem we encountered in Jack's classroom with Miss Stretchberry. So this week we will finish reading A River of Words, and then we are going to complete the author's note activity. So let's finish the book now. One night, alone in his room, Willie began to write his own poems. At first, he imitated the famous English writers he had learned about in school. He counted the beats in each line and made the endings rhyme. The archer is awake, the swan is flying, gold against blue, an arrow is lying. Poetry suited Willie. Every night he looked forward to sitting at his desk and writing a few new lines. But after a while, he grew frustrated. He had pictures in his mind that didn't fit exactly into steady rhythms or rhymes. I've never seen a swan or an archer, Willie thought. I want to write about ordinary things. Plums, wheelbarrows and weeds, fire engines, children, and trees. Things I see when I walk down my street or when I look out my window. So, Willie tried writing a new way. Instead of counting the beats or making the end words rhyme, he let each poem find its own special shape on the page. There is a bird in the poplars. It is the sun. The leaves are little yellow fish swimming in the river. There is a bird in the poplars. It is the sun. The leaves are little yellow fish swimming in the river. Now, when he wrote poems, he felt as free as the Passaic River as it rushed into the falls. Willie's notebooks filled up, one after another. My boy is a good writer, his mother said, and it was true. Unfortunately, no one paid much money for poetry, and Willie needed to earn a living. The little sparrows hop ingeniously about the pavement, quarreling, with sharp voices over things that interest them. Willie's mother had told him stories about her older brother Carlos, who was a doctor. When our father died, she told Willie, Carlos's salary provided for a whole family. Willie liked the idea of healing people and of providing for a family. But could he do both and still write poetry? Dreams are not a bad thing. I am moved to write poetry. So much depends upon labor. At age 19, Willie went off to study medicine at the university where he met Ezra Pound, Hilda Doolittle, and Charles Demuth. Ezra and H.D. were studying literature, while Charlie studied painting. The friends spent many afternoons together discussing books, music, and art. The harder Willie's medical training became, the more he enjoyed the time he spent with them. Among the rain lights I saw the figure in gold, on a red fire truck moving, tense, unheated, to gang, clang, siren howls, and wheels rumbling through the dark city. 5 and 5. When he graduated, he returned to Rutherford and he hung his sign, William C. Williams, M.D., Family Medicine. Every morning, Dr. Willie Williams filled his black bag with medicines and instruments and drove off to visit patients in their homes. Every afternoon, he returned to his office, where more patients waited. They call me, and I go. The door opens, I smile, and enter. All day he delivered babies, healed hurts and bruises, set broken bones, and wrote prescriptions for coughs and fevers. Dr. Williams is the busiest man in town, said the neighbors, and it was true. But no matter how many babies he delivered, no matter how many sick people he cured, Willie could not stop writing poems. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow, glazed with rain, beside the white chickens. On his prescription pads, he scribbled a few lines whenever and wherever he could. In those precious times, the rhythm of the river he had rested beside as a child seemed to guide him, like the water that sometimes ran slow, smooth, and steady, and other times came rushing in a hurried flood. Willie's lines flowed across the page. After his long doctor's day, William climbed to the attic, where he kept a lamp and a desk filled with letters from his artist friends, and notes he'd made about things he heard, seen, or had done. As the rest of Rutherford put out its lights, Willie took out his pen and notes. He sat down, and he looked at the words. This is just to say, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet and so cold. I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox, and shaped them into poems. The moon, the dried weeds, 7 feet tall, the dark dried weed stalks, make a part of the night, a red lace on a blue milky sky, right by a small lamp, almost nameless. And the moon is tilted and half gone. And this is what we looked at during our last lesson, the William Carlos Williams timeline of his own events next to world events. We're going to pay quite a bit of attention to the author's note, which is here, and I've placed a copy in the Google Drive as well. See you online. Okay, so let's look at the author's note. This is a copy of the author's note that you will all have in your Google Drive, be able to view and edit. You can read that over and then scroll down. And this is the task, your completion task for this lesson. Focus question: what inspired William Carlos Williams to write poetry, and where can you see evidence of this in his poetry? So first, you're asked to give a little bit of background on William Carlos Williams. This could be anything that we learned from the book or the author's note above. For example, William Carlos Williams was a family doctor, and he helped sick people even when they couldn't pay. And his poetry style was distinctive: short lines or stanzas, little or no punctuation. Some things that you could choose in this part of the graphic organizer. What inspired your poet? Well, certainly everyday objects, things all around him, and like the Passaic River was mentioned a couple of times, and other poets also inspired him. Maybe you could list some of those other poets that he talks about. What evidence do you see of this in his poetry in this section here? Well, the Red Wheelbarrow, right guys? That was the very first poem we learned about by him. Red wheelbarrow is certainly an everyday object. And what about the poem from the book This Is Just to Say? That was the one about the plums. Reflection and connection. So Jack's first poem, In Love That Dog, was inspired by William Carlos Williams. That was a connection I made. Maybe you made the same one, or you could put something different there. Something else I would reflect on is just the fact that I didn't even know he was a doctor until reading this book, A Doctor and a Poet. And something else that I reflect and connect on is that William Carlos Williams has inspired me to appreciate things around me. Like, for example, I have a rhododendron shrub outside my living room window. And just this morning, I noticed the first bloom blossoming next to my azalea shrub. So those are some things that he has taught me. I look forward to seeing your graphic organizer complete and some reflections and connections you've made as well. Have a wonderful week, guys, and I'll see you online. Remember, if you have any questions, go to our live chat off the Emo Schools website. Have a good week.